Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
I'm good, Jeremy. I might be a little echoey today. I'm in a bit of a basement.
You are, aren't you? Crikey. A little bit echoey, Ben. In that case, I'm going to mute you and say welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology, change, innovation. This week is going to be a bit of a quick show because we're super busy getting ready for the Data Jam next week. So we're going to preview that event and some of the results of the pre-event survey. And we're also going to do a bit of news. Okay, so let's start, Ben, with this McKinsey story.
Yeah, I mean, two thoughts on this. This is in insurance news. So McKinsey's brought out their annual report on the state of the market, global market. So what it fundamentally does is it tells a few statistics and then looks ahead. I have to say, I think it's quite understated in the sense that it's not exactly blowing me away anyway when I read this, and it feels like it's all been said before. And you might read between the lines and say that despite the fact McKinsey presumably want to do some work off the back of this in insurance, there ain't as much going on as you might hope for. And so that the sort of highlights are, I mean, they say there are opportunities for growth, but I guess they would always say that. The markets have been growing, both the life and the P&C markets have been growing, but mainly through rate increases, not through GWP. So in fact, if you like, the number of policies that are being written are not growing. And they're under the level they were pre-pandemic. So really the insurance industry isn't growing other than through rate. And of course, we're going into a soft cycle now, which they don't particularly mention. Their numbers are from 22 to 23 as well. So got 24, which would presumably show a softening of rate a bit. Anyway, what they do focus on, and they make the point on, is that the portfolio management, which a lot of insurers do talk about a lot, basically class and product management is not as important in their view as execution, operational capability. So they're saying that is going to be the big differentiator and will allow the better you are operationally, the better you are able to ride the cycles. So I mean, I think that is an interesting point. And you have to say, though, slightly depressingly, a lot of the insurers are probably operationally not in a good place.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels, it does feel very flat, this report, sadly.
I think I'd probably take a different view than that. I think I might say that actually there are sparks of innovation in terms of products and services and the way people talk about it. I mean, last week we stole the scoop, didn't we, Ben? Talking about the follow market and the way that technology is driving change there. And we've talked a lot about cyber and those kind of new risks that are coming on, and how kind of moving to a service rather than indemnity model. So I think there are pockets of creativity. I agree, though, that there is still a big focus on trying to reduce the operational burden in London. The frictional costs, trying to remove those and all that kind of thing, and that's great, and that's going on in the background. But you can't just focus on that. And a lot of the big brokers and underwriters, they've got to a strategic vision to grow and deliver profitable growth, and that means investing in new services rather than just cutting to make the bottom line a bit better.
Yeah, I think it misses. I agree. I think it might just be a bad report, of course, but it does miss a few key points. I don't think it really picks up on the competitive nature of the market, for example, which is pretty important. I don't think it really picks up on the increasing focus on the customer and service and things like that, which we've talked about a lot. And I think those might be softer issues, but they're quite important in markets. They drive, the ideas and the impetus for growth comes from people who decide to do things differently. So I think, I think it's not a brilliant report in terms of its summary of what's going on. I think it's probably a classic kind of consulting study that talks about things that they would like to consult on, which is operational perhaps. But I perhaps would take the point that, as you did, that operational is important, but there does seem to be quite a lot going on from where we sit. And this is quite a flat report, albeit that the numbers do show that it's flat in terms of innovation. There's nothing much happening, but that may be we may be at a sort of inflection point in the market where that does change. But again, we've seen this before. We might be proven wrong.
Yeah, indeed. So I was just going to build on that and just think about when we did London market claims, and the keynote from Colin Masson was very much talking about customer innovation and growth, and actually claims was becoming more prevalent in that conversation because claims delivers the service. Claims actually data can help underwriters. Those underwriters can then develop better products and better services, and hopefully you create this cycle of improvement. And I think you might be right that we're in at this time where people are wondering where to invest. I think that came through quite strongly at the conference, that there is a nervousness to invest in stuff because it is so new, is developing at such a pace. No one really sure how the technology is going to change the risk landscape and the business and operating models to deliver those customer service roles. So there may be a hesitation, but I think, and we'll see next week at the Data Jam conference, there are a number of case studies. I can cite the Hiscox one where they're using AI to improve underwriting performance, and that's been live and that's been going for a few months now. Well, that's not going to stop. That's just going to carry on, and they're going to test and learn. We're not in this kind of, it doesn't feel like we're in a kind of .com environment where money is just being thrown around. I think they're quite distinct use cases, and also we've got a different approach now where there is this test and learn. We've been through those cycles before, so maybe we are in a bit of a hiatus before we see a bit of a movement, but it's certainly interesting times, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think the focus on technology enabling people, I think, is quite a fundamental point for insurance that probably wasn't there a few years ago. And so I don't think technology is seen as the great white hope anymore. I think it's just part of the solution. I think some of the things that you can do with machine learning are helpful to the more dull, administrative aspects of the industry that have to be shifted, and that does have to happen. And I suppose that's the log jam, really. But if you move ahead of that, I think you can see, and to some extent, this is what the McKinsey report says, you can see where those opportunities will come. In some ways that's correct, therefore, to say that you need to operationally get things moving so you can free up people to innovate.
I think I agree with you.
That's really good, actually. Having said it was a terrible report, it's really good.
It is. It's given us lots of food for thought.
Yes. No, it's fine. I think it's fine. It just felt a bit flat, really, and I think it's probably not how we're feeling.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, good. So it's a bit of a quick show, as I say, but let's talk about data, because we've got the Data Jam coming up next week. You'll be there, Ben. I just wanted to kind of touch on your session, because it is quite different to the other sessions that we've got running over the course of the day, because you've taken obviously data in insurance and specifically in the London market. I mean, you can take any kind of lens to it, but you've interestingly taken a kind of sales, marketing and brand lens to it and got some great speakers there. So I just wonder if you give us a quick overview about kind of.
Yeah. So we've got some, as you say, some really good, very senior people who have actually launched brands and campaigns and all sorts in the market, broking and insurance. And so that it'll be an interesting panel. I think one of the things is very important to marketing people is how do you build credibility of marketing and then measure its return. But we are seeing increasing spends in the market. So presumably there is some convincing that is working at the moment, but everybody's very interested in that. The bit about the latest trends is going to be, I mean, I'm doing that with Julian Steedman and Cara, who was at Gallagher, is now moving on, but she's after working for the Insurance Masters Group. But that, I think, is a session where we're going to be talking about some of the really interesting things that you can do now with research data that obviously we're interested in, but how much more quickly, in particular, we can get the data, whereas before we couldn't. So we're talking about things like machine learning, synthetic models that are used to create research samples. And that whole area is effectively, again, removing a logjam, which is the slowness of getting data in a B2B environment, which is quite hard because you tend to have to do a few surveys and things. And I think the other end of the spectrum is how we're using data to prove performance, how we're using dashboards and data visualization to educate, I suppose, the executives about the impact and the effectiveness of investing in marketing campaigns. So yeah, I mean, I think it'll be really interesting, and it's also just interesting to talk with some of the people. We've got Georgina from and Anna, particularly from Beasley, and Markel, both of whom have launched brands, and Georgina's Beasley has been doing a lot of campaigns and so on, which always raises a lot of interest. So they'll be talking about how they are also they have to use data to underpin those campaigns and to prove, if you like, the effectiveness, and also tools really for deciding where those campaigns would be directed at and how they've returned on that investment. And because those spends are going up, clearly there's going to be a room full of people, hopefully, who are all in these jobs saying, yes, we want to do more of this. So yeah, so it'd be really good. Be a good couple of hours, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fascinating. I've been along to your sessions before, Ben, and they're always really, what I like about it is kind of refreshing, because I don't see the marketing side of things so much. I'm more ops and IT, so it's really interesting to hear those conversations and actually how much they align with the thinking around the organization. So we always say in insurance everything is very siloed, but I get the feeling actually that when I hear the conversations in that room, there is a kind of an active a kind of move to break those barriers down and recognize the value that each kind of function can deliver to the other. So yeah, I think it would be great.
I think that's right. I mean, I think the whole brand thing is about bringing together the whole proposition, and I think that is beginning to happen in organisations. So the ones that are doing that tend to be more open towards brand building, because They want something to represent the whole thing, and the promise. And I know that people are realizing that's very, very important. So it isn't just about kind of advertising campaigns. It's about how do you, as an insurer, move away from that siloed approach, or that we just provide this policy or that policy, or pay a claim occasionally, into something that is much more of a value add proposition for the customer. So it is beginning to come together, and it has been pretty poor in the past and pretty boring, some of it, to be honest. Insurance in this country, I mean, it's interestingly, creatively, if you look at the US, it's one of the most interesting sectors in terms of advertising and marketing now, because that's not just an accident. It's because the data is telling them how effective it is in terms of turning what is a relatively boring kind of grudge purchase often into something that is a little more appealing. So the use of humor and brand assets and all sorts of things, just lifts the offer, really.
Yeah.
Makes it perhaps a little more palatable to people. So it's very interesting. Yeah, it should be a really good session, actually. And they're such good people that we've got on stage.
Yeah, brilliant. So looking forward to that. And then, also to kind of tee up some other discussions that we'll have over the course of the day. So as always, we run a pre-event survey where we ask the audience what their key challenges are, and also what areas they'd like to have discussed over the conference. And so I did that research last week and just pulled together all the results, and these were my kind of 5 key challenges. And I don't think many of these will be surprising, but data quality, governance, especially when you're talking about AI, that's going to be new. It's going to have to be looked at in a great deal of detail, because the regulation will be changing down the track. So you've got to be ready for that, I would have thought. Integrating AI into legacy systems, complex ecosystems. We all know that, and we talk about quite a bit, there is a real challenge around technology legacy, but also there is a mindset legacy as well. There needs to be a kind of a change in the mindset that can adopt and accept these new ways of working, because you can have all the great technology you want, but if nobody uses it, then you'll never see the return on investment, which is the kind of the next bullet there, delivering business value from AI. In the last 18 months, I would say it's gone from talking about the theoretical use of AI into people quite happy to openly talk about how they're using AI to improve business performance, collect data, streamline processes and things like that. And to the next point, and to enhance the customer experience, I think, as I was saying, what came out the claims conference so strongly a few weeks ago, there is an absolute, from those that we see as the leading brokers and underwriters, a commitment to deliver and enhance the customer client experience. And I think having that as a rule of thumb is key. And then, of course, you've got the kind of the skills, capabilities, and talent question, and how you're going to kind of create that data literacy across the organization. So just a few thoughts there that are really interesting and will be good springboards into the conversation.
I think the data literacy thing, it's funny, it's been around for a long time now, but it was always something that was said at conferences, which is that we'll get to an age where we have a lot of data, but the interpretation of that will be critical. And I mean, from the data business, I think that is critical as too. I'm absolutely clear that just taking data literally is quite dangerous. You have to really work out what's going on and whether this is relevant data, and apply it with some skill and interpretation. But interesting, I think we're there now. I think we're at that stage, and particularly with AI, where there are questions that you have to answer about whether the AI has done a good job or not. I mean, it's machine learning, right? So it's prone to errors and mistakes, just as any of that sort of data production tools models are. So I think it's somewhat misleading often when we just keep using the word AI, because it's not really intelligent. I mean, it is just chunking through stuff, looking at connections, and therefore I think it's critically important that we know what we're looking at when we see it, as opposed to just lifting it and taking it off the page and saying, therefore, that is some sort of truth. So I would really pick up on that data literacy, and I think it's quite lacking actually in certainly in insurance. I mean, it might well be lacking in lots of organisations. I think in financial services generally, there's a lot of people who are good at numbers and the rational side of this, the spreadsheet type stuff. But interpreting soft data, for example, I think is quite limited in terms of its, people's capability. Simply because it does take a human being still to do that. So I think there'll be a really, really important challenge to businesses to do good, not just good stuff, but I think innovate with data, as opposed to just get loads more of it.
Good. Right, we said it was going to be quick today. Very busy week. So we are going to leave it there. I'm going to ask you, Ben, what are you doing this weekend?
I'm going away. It's my wife's birthday, so we're going to a hotel. A little night away in the Kent coast, let's just say.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
It'll be cold, but it'll be nice.
Yeah, indeed. So long as it's dry. I mean, that's the main thing. So.
Yeah, it's going to be dry and sunny, I think. How about you?
I think I'll be doing a bit of work getting ready for next week, but it's all coming together. Going to have lots of people. So very excited about welcoming everybody to that brand new event. So if you're coming along, I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. So with that in mind, we won't have a show next week. But we will be back in a couple of weeks' time. We'll reflect on the outcomes from the conference. Hopefully it goes well. We can report something back. But yeah, we'll be back here in a couple of weeks. So enjoy the weekend, everybody, and see you soon.
Bye.
Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.